What is up, everyone? Brandon First, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are First. Welcome in to another episode of the Changeup here on the network, where we break down everything Major League Baseball has to offer. And with me, as always, is my co-host Bryanna Winner. You can find Bryanna at bwinner12. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing okay. I just am rooting for a certain team, and I hope that they can beat your Phillies. I'm very sorry.
No, that's okay. I think unless you are a fan of the three teams in it, the Diamondbacks are probably that pick, that definitely that underdog pick. And this time last week, I was as big of a Diamondbacks fan as anybody, and I think a lot of Dodger haters and pretty much every team that is in the NL West, big fans of the Diamondbacks. But yeah, it's time now to break down, the league championship series. We are recording here on the 17th of October. We are going to look back at the division series and the wild card series as well. But before we get there, also going to check in on our teams as well. But we have a little bit of, front office and managerial news. Bryanna has some, of course, managerial news on her end that she'll get to in the winner's circle. But obviously, I would say the big managerial change, besides Terry Francona, he retired, but that was, in the works for quite some time. So no surprise there. But Gabe Kapler getting the axe. That was, at least to me, it was interesting. I know Bryanna was the first one to text me about it. Definitely caught me off guard. I thought he did as well as humanly possible with that team. The front office said no. And some interesting news coming out in the last few days. The first female base coach to ever coach on a field in Major League, Alyssa Nakin. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing that, but she became the first woman to ever interview for a managerial job. So it was the first round of interviews. Best of luck to her and everyone else who is interviewing. Not too much luck. I can't have the Giants be too good. I already have to deal with the Dodgers. So, best of luck as much as possible going forward. And some other news as well in Miami. Equally odd was Kim Na not returning to Miami. Apparently, it was her choice. Her option was picked up, but she decided not to come back. I have heard some rumors that apparently the Marlins were going to hire someone to kind of be over her in terms of player personnel. So I could understand why she was not enthused there. So very interesting there. I thought obviously, Kim Na is the first general manager to get a team into the postseason, and I don't think anyone expected the Marlins to make it, but the front office has decided they're moving on. But Bryanna, what are your thoughts, Kapler and Kim Na not returning next year?
I don't blame Kim Na for her decision. I mean, she has done wonders for this team, and you're saying that you want to put somebody above her when she's been the one that's been making the calls the last couple of years, the one that has taken this team to the playoffs the last couple of years. I'm sorry, but no.
Yeah.
Maybe she'll take the job in LA.
That would be nice.
I'd love that. And dang, you didn't put naked on here. I was going to do it.
Oh yeah, no, I just kind of threw it out there.
I thought you didn't even notice it.
Oh, come on now.
Dang. I was going to do it. I had it on my notes because you didn't have it there. So
Well, any thoughts on it? I mean,
I would love it.
Yeah.
If she could, but obviously there's still a couple rounds of interviews. I'm sure that they've got other interviewees lined up as well. So I guess we'll see what happens moving forward. They've got really 6 months until 5 months until the new season begins. So we'll see what happens in the off season.
Yeah, and to be fair, for anyone going from, and I don't know her exact title with the team right now, and when she was base coach, it was, I believe, because of either an injury or an ejection. It was actually against the Padres, if I remember correctly. But either way, that is a large jump Usually you'll see maybe a bench coach or a hitting coach get those opportunities, but I think it's great for her to get this. At the very least, get the kind of interview process down. I'm rooting for her, as much as anyone. This would be incredibly historic, and would be great. Would be a little tough for me because 10 to 12 days out of the year, I'm going to be hoping that she loses. She does get that job, but I'm sure she will love that opportunity. And I think it would be great. Going back to Kim Na, I completely agree with you. Look, if the Marlins had maybe gone, 70 and 91 or kind of, puttered to the end, this or that, even then, I think it would be hard to kind of do that because it's not like she's been put in a position where she can just go out and rebuild this team overnight. They don't spend money. They don't really have a fan base. No disrespect to the Marlin fans out there, but it's one of the smaller fan bases. So everything seemed to be kind of working against her. Still was able to get into the playoffs. Obviously, was a little unfortunate. They ran into the buzzsaw that was the Phillies, but if there were any higher expectations in that front office for her, that's ridiculous. I don't blame her at all, and I think she's going to be a very hot commodity, as you said. And then also, I didn't put him in there, but Billy Epler will not be returning to the Mets. I don't know. There are plenty of talk about whether or not he was fired or not, but the official decision is he is not returning. Maybe it's that quote unquote mutual decision, but the GM of the Mets, not terribly surprising, and Buck Showalter as well, is not coming back. But those weren't really surprises to me, so didn't really need to put them onto the rundown. But any final thoughts on those situations?
Considering how fast the Mets fell, I don't blame the Mets.
No.
They fell way too fast with the lineup that they had. Obviously, injuries are going to be a problem, but they didn't have too many to that.
No.
So it was just bad pitching, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and it was a lot of players not playing up to their paychecks, let's be honest, as you kind of alluded to. But at the end of the day, it was Billy Epler who signed those checks, and not a big surprise. They went from, opening day thinking we're going to be a dynasty to by the trade deadline pretty much telling everyone we're not going to compete until 2026. Wow, that's a hell of a drop off there. But yeah.
Meanwhile, you have a team that started off super hot and then lost in the playoffs. We'll talk about them in a minute.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, as a fan, I'd rather be in that situation, no matter how frustrating that is. But and yeah, I think that fan base, if they're old enough, they're used to it, unfortunately. But it's very, very unfortunate. You don't like to see anybody lose their jobs. Nobody's going to miss meals. Everyone is very successful, and they'll be able to make money in this sport anyway. But at the end of the day, like you said, don't want to see anyone lose their jobs. But moving on to we're going to keep it somber before we get to the good stuff of the recap. We're going to kind of just tie a bow on our team seasons. Bryanna, we're going to step into the winner's circle first and then take on the Padres. But what have you got for us?
Wait, before that, I just remembered something. 2028 Olympics, softball and baseball.
Thank you. I meant to, that was, I think 20, 30 minutes after I put in the rundown. So you suck it, breakdancing. What's that?
Flag football is joining too.
Yeah. Okay. Enjoy the United States beating Canada 56-6 in the gold medal game. I mean, at least baseball, you can make the case for about 5 or 6 other countries, maybe not even the U.S. in that, but
softball, you can make arguments for the majority of the world, minus Europe.
Yeah.
Unless you're like,
and flag football too. I mean, it's interesting because there
were other sports that got added in there, but the important one is softball, baseball finally back because let's be honest, Europe doesn't want it.
So, well, then that's okay. That's fine. I mean, I feel like now it seems like every Olympics, it's more geared towards the region. I mean, in 2024, I'll never get over the fact that breakdancing replaced baseball. And no disrespect to our breakdancers out there if you're listening, but I'm sorry. I think baseball's more of a sport, and we can have a healthy debate about it, but you're not going to change my mind. But yeah, I think it is very regional. And I'm not sure. I don't even know if they've announced 2032. But if it's in Japan, baseball will stay. And as you kind of alluded to, if it's in Europe or South America, baseball is going to drop for, I don't know. I don't have anything on the top of my head in those regions. But anyways, yes, baseball is back in the Olympics. Also, though, too, and I don't want to like bah humbug this, it's kind of anticlimactic because we don't see
Uh,
major leaguers playing it.
2032 is not
Uh-huh.
being is 2032 is in Australia.
Oh, okay. So baseball
It's
might
gonna be
stick
in
around.
winter.
It may stick around. I don't know if rugby is still in the Olympics, but that might sneak in as well in Australia. But I think
Oh,
rugby is.
problem.
But
Rugby is a big thing around a lot of
yeah,
countries in the US.
yeah,
But yeah, it's in Brisbane. I love their motto is "Have a go."
hmm, sounds
That
good.
that is legitimately their motto, and I love it.
Yeah, so good, good
Yeah,
to see baseball back.
yeah, I figured they had announced that one already, so I just needed to double check because I thought
Yeah,
I saw something about it being in Australia.
yeah. Outside of curling in the Winter Olympics and maybe some track and field, myself personally, I'm not a big Olympics guy. Now, it being in LA, that might change things because I feel like 80% of the Olympics have been on the other side of the globe. So if you want to see something live, it's 2 in the morning. And sorry, I don't need to see Michael Phelps win his 15th gold medal at 3 in the morning. So just myself
A lot in the
personally.
US.
Sorry.
Quite a lot in the US and Canada.
The last one I could think of would be either Vancouver or the United States. Has to be Salt Lake City, the winter in 2022, unless I'm missing, or excuse me, 2002 or 2000. It was in the early 2000s, but and then of course the first one I remember vividly was Atlanta. Unfortunately, not for good reasons, but that was just kind of the bombing is what I always think about when it comes to '96. But yeah, none of them. Myself personally, I'm definitely not the Olympian historian. I really, like I said, outside of a few things, I love curling every 4 years, but you know, not a big Olympics guy. But it is great to see baseball back in it. But once again, I said like no, it's not the WBC. We're not going to see Otani versus Trout in the gold medal game, unfortunately. So, but with that being said, time to step into the winner's circle. Bryanna, what you got for us?
Well, Phil Nevin was fired. Sorry, that's the first thing I had to go to. I'm
Yeah.
seeing Phil Nevin was fired. I mean, they could have done so much more. They started off like really quickly, and then obviously injuries didn't help them. Rendon really should not be on this roster, but he comes back anyway, like a fly on the wall. And then obviously they shut down Otani. They had shut down Trout. Trout tried to come back, and while he was still injured, and that was a mistake that Nevin made. He shouldn't have come back until he was fully healthy.
Yeah.
And then obviously the assistant GM, Alex Taman, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. He also was fired.
Yeah.
He won't be returning either. So there's our front office, and we'll see what happens. But I would not mind Kim not coming in.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see it going forward. Now, I guess my other question would be, are we going to do the will he won't he with Artie Moreno? Is he gonna quote unquote, offer to sell the team again? Because that was kind of the story last off season. Now obviously, unfortunately the Mike Trout saga, we'll see. I'll tell you what, I think overall, for the health of the franchise, I think it's best if the Angels don't bring back Otani. I think it might be best for the Angels to trade Trout, bring in as many prospects as possible, and just try and rebuild this up again. Because until they get out from underneath the Anthony Rendon contract, it's going to be pretty difficult to get through there. Because I would not be surprised to see Rendon just get released this offseason.
God, I
Just
hope so.
because, yeah, I mean, it's going to be difficult because they're going to have to pay him all of it. So it's going to have to be a situation where they really just don't want him there. But everything I've heard, no one in the media likes him there, and it's not because he's not producing. It's because he's kind of an a-hole to him. You can look it up. It's
Well,
not,
that's
those
too.
aren't my words. Sorry.
It's a combination of a lot of things.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is the fact that he signed this massive contract, and I don't think he's played 162 games. Seriously, I mean, and I could be a little bit off base, but he has missed more than he's been in, and when he's been in, it's not been good. So
And
tough.
granted, some of these injuries are unavoidable. Like
Mhm.
I can't give him flack for that one, but some of these injuries are preventable. Kind of like Aaron Judge and the whole toe thing.
Well,
But
and
I
my big thing was so early this most recent injury, it went down as a bone bruise
yeah,
originally, and he was out for what, correct me if I'm wrong, but like almost 2 months, maybe even
yeah.
more, and then
And
it
then it
came
comes out
out.
that it was broken bone.
Yeah. What? Like, I don't know, it's that and the Otani, the whole thing with Otani's last game, like it, I don't know if it's the public relations or the media relations, or if it's just the Angels are just, because the difference between a bone bruise and a broken tibia, I think is what it was. That's those are miles different. And as a fan, like if I was in your shoes, Bryanna, I hear Anthony Rendon goes down with a bone bruise. Oof, okay. But then he's out for 2 months. I mean, I feel like I could come back from a bone bruise in 2 months. So you're asking questions, and then, oh no, it's actually a broken tibia. Oh, well, that makes a lot more sense. I don't know. It's,
Depending on where the bone bruise is, I could probably come back within like a week or two.
I mean, like I said, I don't want to sell the
Depending on
guy
where it
short.
is.
Yeah, but it is I guess my main point is the difference is astronomical.
Yeah.
It's like saying, oh, he has back spasms rather. Oh no, he's got a broken back. Oh, well, that's a lot different. I don't know. It's a lot of
I mean,
eyebrows being
and
raised.
this argument could also be directed to the Yankees and Rizzo.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay. 100%. Yes, you are correct.
Yeah,
The
but
concussion.
you, yeah, and you saw how that game was the only time it could have happened. Like you didn't see
Mhm.
anything else on where it could have happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't blame your Padres. I blame the Yankees.
No. That's baseball. It wasn't anything dirty. It's like
That's baseball, but the fact that it was like he was showing signs of post concussion,
yeah.
and you still left him in there.
Yeah, that was not good.
It's
Obviously, I think
it's like Miami and Tua.
well, yeah. The only difference I'll say there is the NFL has an entire protocol
But the
for
Dolphins.
that. They have people that are on the sidelines in the stadium for that exact reason.
Oh, I
I
know.
think baseball is going to get to that point, but I would say outside of someone being either running into a wall or being hit by a pitch, that was kind of the first time that I've seen like a delayed concussion announcement, if you will. So I do think next year probably we'll see something. It'll be the Rizzo rule going forward. So just like Tommy John has a whole surgery named after him, maybe we'll see the Rizzo rule for
Luke
independent
Gehrig,
doctors and
Luke
dugouts.
Gehrig has a whole disease named after him.
Yeah, I didn't want to go there, but yeah.
I know, but you mentioned Tommy John. I had to
Mhm.
go there.
Amen. But moving on to something equally depressing, maybe not as depressing, but it is the final wrap up on the Padres season. And look, I'll give the Padres credit; they made it interesting somehow, some way. They didn't get eliminated until the second to last day of the season. It was looking a little crazy. I think that at one point they had like a 0.04% chance, and it worked all the way up to like 3%, and then that ended with a Marlins win. So the Padres obviously not playoff bound, but if you were paying attention, you had that pretty much figured out very early into September. And it is unfortunate. Obviously, the other unfortunate news was the reports of the clubhouse drama. And the offseason, the big question early on for the offseason was who's coming back. Is Melvin or Preller going to get the quote unquote axe? Because everything we had heard, these guys cannot work together. Well, apparently they can, or at least they're going into the 2023 season, or excuse me, the 2024 season. Uh, it's it's bittersweet. I'm excited. Bob Melvin's back. I'm questioning whether or not AJ Preller is the front office version of Neo in the Matrix, where he's just dodging bullet after bullet, because AJ Preller has a track record of making some really, really bad decisions. I mean, the Padres have given essentially the Mariners their closer and their starting third baseman for Austin Nola. Let's not forget that. He also went out and got a Mike Clevenger, who was not able to get things done. Rich Hill, they gave up players for, who didn't even make it to the end of the season. I don't know how AJ Preller survives, but he does. So going forward for the Padres, the big question now that we know Melvin and Preller are both coming back, the big question is Juan Soto. Is he going to get extended, or do the Padres have to? I mean, I feel like if the Padres can't extend Juan Soto, they have to trade him, period. You're going to get a massive prospect haul. Go and do it. Rebuild the farm system, whatever. We're not the super team we thought we were. We still have Tatis, Machado, and Bogarts, and an okay pitching staff. I think you can build around that if you bring in the right prospects. But if you do get Soto signed, great. I would love to see the Padres bring back Blake Snell. I think he's going to make a lot of money, and I hate to say it, but I think someone's going to overpay for him. I really like Blake Snell. I think as a guy, he's absolutely hilarious. But up until this year, he was very streaky, and it was usually the struggles that we saw from Blake Snell. More than likely going to win the Cy Young. More than likely going to get over 200 million. So I don't want the Padres to sign up for that if they can help it, but at the same time, it's not really my money. So we'll see what that does going forward. Manny Machado did get wrist surgery, or actually, I take that back. I don't know. It was arm surgery. Now that I think about it, I don't have the exact note on that, but he will be out 6 to 7 months. So probably going to miss, maybe the first or second month of the season. Hopefully a speedy recovery for him. But for the Padres, it's going to be an offseason question marks about whether or not Soto returns, whether or not Blake Snell returns, and really the overall outlook. Last offseason, it was all about, oh my gosh, we're going to the World Series. I think it might be kind of nice for this offseason to maybe weed out some of the bandwagon fans and kind of get back to, look, let's go out and let's compete with the Dodgers and get our expectations aligned correctly and see what we can do next year. I fully expect this team to, at the very least, make the playoffs next year, even without Blake Snell. I think this team can still. Oh, and also one final thought. Josh Hader will not be coming back to the Padres. Good riddance. He declined to come in the 8th inning. And now, granted, the Padres only had like a 1% chance to make the playoffs. But he declined to come in the 8th inning. As he said, I don't pitch 4 outs when we're not in a playoff push. And the reporter said, well, technically you are mathematically still in it. And Josh Hader didn't sound convinced. So good riddance to Josh Hader. Go make $20 million somewhere else and be a prima donna. Maybe get a haircut while you're at it, but just my 2 cents. Anyways, for the Padres offseason, hopefully bring Soto back. Bring in a few pitchers on the back end of this rotation, rebuild the bullpen, and hope that your guys at the top of the lineup next year can produce. If that is the case, I think the Padres have a pretty darn good chance of winning the National League West. But that's all I got for the Padres as they look ahead to the off season. Now it is time for us to look back on the wild card and division series. Since we last spoke, looking back, obviously the wild card series, no game 3s. We are recording, as I said, on the 17th of October. Game 2 of Philadelphia, Arizona is starting in a matter of moments. So we only got one game to kind of reflect on when we do reflect on the LCS. But we did see the Diamondbacks shock The Brewers in the wild card series, they won that. All these were 2-0s, so I'm not even gonna waste the time laying that out. Philadelphia obviously took care of business with the Marlins, and then Texas went to the Trop and beat the Rays convincingly, and then Minnesota taking down Toronto to not only win their first playoff game in what I think 20 or almost 20 years, but also win their first playoff series. Congratulations to them. Bryanna, any thoughts on what I thought was a very, very boring wild card series?
The Rays' downfall from starting at what, 16-0 to
Seems like
this,
decades ago, but yeah.
and they lost the top spot to Baltimore, who, granted,
Mhm.
I was very happy how they did. I'm very sad that Texas beat them, but at this point, whoever can beat the Astros, I will gladly take. And I know you would too. But yeah, it's
We'll
kind
get to
of
that. We'll get to that.
meh. It's kind of meh.
Yeah. I think the entire postseason as a whole has been I look, it's not the players' onus to make everything as exciting as possible, but outside of game 2 of Philadelphia in Arizona, or excuse me, in Atlanta, which was an absolute amazing game. Every other game has just kind of, as you said, meh, and that's probably the best case. Even these LCSs early on, we saw a little bit of drama with Texas and Houston in game 2. It ended 5-4, but I mean Texas was up 4-0 before the Astros got to swing the bat, so not a ton of drama there. But yeah, been very meh. But speaking of meh, it is the LDS. We of course saw something that I know Bryanna and myself loved. Her newly hometown Arizona Diamondbacks sweeping the Los Angeles Dodgers, because guess what? The best way to know it's fall is not only to see the leaves change, but also to see the Dodgers choke in the playoffs. That's exactly what we saw. Shout out
Once
Clayton
again,
Kershaw. Sorry.
once again.
Always, unless it's a 60-game season, the Dodgers are going to choke in the postseason. Took it to another level here, winning 100 games. And myself and Bryanna's teams had the exact same amount of playoff victories as the Dodgers. So shout out to them and their fans. And on the other side, speaking of, let's call it like it is, choke jobs. Philadelphia takes down Atlanta in 4. And if it wasn't for an incredible Michael Harris catch, it might have been a sweep, but Philadelphia moves on over the 106 win Atlanta Braves. And then Texas sweeping the Orioles. Orioles hadn't been swept in, I think, their past 96 series. Bad time to get swept for the first time. It was in the division series. They go down 3-0. And Houston takes care of Minnesota 3-1 in that one. Minnesota did get one, but Houston took care of business. Overall, LDS thoughts, Bryanna.
Look, we knew Minnesota was never going to get past Houston. Let's just say it now. We knew they were never going to get past them. Baltimore had high hopes for, but granted, they have not made a playoff in a while. They are a very young team that is still growing as a unit and is still growing like player wise as well. So it would not surprise me if we see them again next year. Please leading the East again and maybe making it a lot farther in the playoffs, but never know. We'll see. I'm on the Adley Rutschman train.
Yeah.
But I mean, granted, what Texas is doing right in this moment, I am very happy. I'm kind of happy they beat Baltimore at this moment. And then obviously the National League. Thank God for the Diamondbacks. That
Yeah.
they're back to their form from the start of the season.
Yeah. And
Same thing with Texas, by the way. Because remember, they had fallen flat for a
yep.
while. And then somehow they just peaked at the right time. Same thing with the Diamondbacks. Both of those teams were leading early on. Granted, the Diamondbacks lost their lead at the All-Star break. Texas held on for a little while and was making it a fight with not only the Astros, but Seattle as well. Man, do I wish Seattle had made it. It would be a
I
much
would have liked to
different
see
series, and I would.
Seattle.
So would I. But look, the Diamondbacks again peaked at the right time, and they took down the Dodgers. Now, if they can do it again, sorry to your
Yeah,
Phillies, but if they could do it again, be
yeah,
greatly
we'll see.
appreciated.
Yeah, obviously, on my side of things, the Diamondbacks very, very impressive to do what they did. And even in game three, they faced some adversity and got through it against a team that, look, the Padres were in their shoes last year, essentially. Now, they didn't sweep the Dodgers, but it was, excuse me, kind of the quote unquote slaying of the dragon. And they did it in very, very impressive and emphatic. Couldn't be happier. I think the Diamondbacks are kind of what the Orioles maybe should have tried to mold their team out. Because obviously, look, Diamondbacks very young. But they bring in guys like Evan Longoria, Tommy Pham. No, look, I'm one of the few people, or one of the many people, not a big Tommy Pham fan. However, in terms of being around a young team and kind of being a, maybe not the quintessential locker room guy, but at least somebody who holds people accountable. I think that's been great. And I think, the Orioles might look at that next year and say, look, we have our young core. Let's bring some vets in to just kind of fill in some places. I think that's was huge for the Diamondbacks, because a very young team, Corbin Carroll, and some of those Moreno, who took I think it wasn't a foul ball. I think it was a backswing, and was able to fight through that and able to play against the Dodgers, and is obviously still doing very well in the LCS. But very, very nice to see the Diamondbacks not only just beat the Dodgers, but also a young team kind of take a step forward. As a Padre fan, not ideal, because we already have our hands full with the Dodgers and possibly the Giants as well. Now the Diamondbacks are in the LCS, not ideal on that side of it. Phillies, I wasn't terribly surprised. I guess the big surprise for me was how dominant they were. Outside of game two, like I said, they pretty much, the games weren't really in doubt. And like that home field advantage is incredible. But Philadelphia, they struck first pretty much in every game, and Atlanta didn't want to fight back on the AL side of things. Texas has really impressed me, I should say. I questioned their bullpen coming into the postseason, and their starting staff. Nathan Eovaldi has been an absolute machine. And look, for the Astros, begrudgingly, I'm starting to respect this team. I'll never be a fan of the Astros, but a part of me just has to be, this is their seventh straight LCS. We just talked about the Braves and the Dodgers, who, let's be honest, even if you go back to the 90s with the Braves, sorry?
Choke City.
Yeah, exactly. But on the other side, you have the Astros, who year in and year out, I mean, they didn't take the lead in that division, or at least hold that lead until very late. And the other 3 out of the 4 teams that got a bye, if you will, 3 out of the 4 were eliminated. The one that kept going, as always, it seems like, the Astros. And I can't stand Ben Verlander, but what he said was very, very true. He said the Astros are inevitable. For better or worse, this team is inevitable, and I'm begrudgingly starting to respect these guys, because they're nobody's team outside of their own city. Nobody, no neutral fan will cheer for them. And all they do is just go out and kind of shove it down our throats. But that is kind of a nice little segue into, actually, no, before we get into the LCS, I do have a question for you, Bryanna. Do you think Major League Baseball should change the playoff format? And I'm just kind of putting you on the spot. It just kind of popped into my head. It's been talked about a lot. There are a lot of people who are upset, notably Braves fans, that the best teams aren't in the LCS because they had to essentially take an entire week off. I'm just wondering your thoughts. Do you think that the playoffs format should change?
They need to look at what the Astros did.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, but you have teams that are still fighting in it. You guys have gotten a bye. You guys are still in it. You have 8 teams that are still fighting to get in there, and 3 of you lose in the DS, and there's one that has been able to do it for the last, you said what, 7 years?
Mm-hmm.
In the Astros. Take a page out of the Astros book and stop complaining.
Yeah, and
That is the
start
only time
cheating. I
you
mean,
will
no,
hear
I'm
me
just
say
kidding. No, I completely agree. And I don't know if it was Brian Snitker, but I think it was one of the managers. It could have been Brandon Hyde. I'm not sure. But they asked him, oh, do you think, you were at a disadvantage? And he just went, the Astros were just fine. And I completely agree. Now, maybe one little tweak I could say, in the wild card series, maybe make it a 1 game. So you don't have to wait. Some of these teams don't have to wait. Or you make the division series 7 games, best of 7. And look, I know how MLB would go about it. They're always going to want more playoff games, things like that. That would be something, but I agree. You got to go out. And there's one thing that also jumps out to me. The 3 teams that were eliminated. Now, Baltimore was fighting, a bit, but Atlanta, LA, and Baltimore, they had their divisions wrapped up a
early.
week. Baltimore a week, but I mean, Atlanta and the Dodgers, they hadn't played a meaningful baseball game in over a month. I think that maybe had more to do with it overall. So I don't know. As someone said on social media, if you have a problem with being a 1 or a 2 seed, just lose more games. It's really simple. I mean, but anyways, just want to get your thoughts on that. I'm glad that we are both on the same page there, but we're going to look ahead now, or look at the LCS. As I said, it is the 17th of October. So as it stands right now, it is a travel day in the American League. The Texas Rangers up 2-0 on Houston. They went to Houston and took 2 of them. They'll have 3 now in Texas to try to punch their ticket to their first World Series in quite some time. I want to say since the early 2010s, if I have that correct. But up 2-0. And then on the other side of things, as I said, first pitch probably just got rolling in the
Corbin Carroll's on first. Corbin Carroll's on first. Marte is already out. Terry Pham's up to bat. But,
perfect. There we go.
and I don't know why I just said Terry.
That's okay. He doesn't need it. If anybody's going to be misnamed in this podcast, it's going to be Terry Pham. But that's sticking, by the way. He's Terry Pham for the rest of my life. But no, as of right now, it's Philadelphia. They won game 1, 5-2 last night. But Arizona looking to rebound as well. They have Austin Nola is going for Arizona, and Merrill Kelly, if I'm correct.
You just said Austin Nola is going for Arizona.
Okay, hey, Aaron Nola. I can be forgiven for that one. I can be forgiven.
Yes, it's Merrill Kelly because I'm looking at it.
Thank you. Yes, so Merrill Kelly. Yeah, one of the Nolas, the good Nola, the talented Nola is going for Philadelphia. But
no, you were right about who it was. You were wrong about the team.
Oh, yeah, one way or... Oh, yeah, I guess I knew how it meant up here. But anyways, what are your thoughts on the LCS?
Kudos to Texas. Please continue. That's all I'm going to say on that series. Because that's really all there is to say on that series. Because everybody but Houston wants it. Meanwhile, I'm really wanting Arizona to pull this out. But we will see. I mean, Philly is strong. They also had a hard spot at the beginning, unlike the Diamondbacks. But again, these teams are peaking at the right time. I mean, nobody would have expected Arizona to come back and sweep the Dodgers after the second half of the season that they had. And obviously, Twins, we kind of knew. Texas, same thing. They didn't have the greatest of, fourth quarter of the season. But they were at least still fighting. Baltimore, like you said, had it wrapped up already, but that was even a fight for a while because the Rays were being the Rays at the start of the season. And then I don't understand what happened to them. Tommy Pham struck out, by the way. So now there's 2 outs. And I know who you're rooting for, but I'm rooting for the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, look, my ties to Philadelphia run deep. Actually, I might have, I don't know if I've ever pulled this story on the podcast, but my first sports memory, it might be my first cognitive memory ever. But it was the 92 or 93 World Series when Joe Carter hit the walk-off home run to clinch the World Series for the Blue Jays over the Phillies. The one of the few times I ever saw my dad cry, and I remember saying, I will never be like that. Well, I'm actually worse. But anyways, yeah, so I am pulling for the Phillies, obviously, on that side of it. Wouldn't be heartbroken to see Arizona get through. I just don't know how they get through. I will say I was impressed with them last night. I think I said they won 5-2. It was 5-3 if I remember correctly. But anyways, I like their fight back. They went down 2-0, pretty much 3 batters into the game. They were down 5-0 deep into that game. Zach Wheeler was dealing. Geraldo Perdomo hits a 2-run bomb, and the Diamondbacks bullpen kept the Phillies within striking distance. Double play to end the game, but there was a little bit of drama late. And that was something we didn't really see with the Braves. The Braves didn't really kind of counterpunch the Phillies. So I was glad to see that the Diamondbacks did that. Look, I want a game 7 at some point. I mean, we only have 3 series left. These 2 series and the World Series. There's a real possibility we don't see a do or die game. I don't know what the stats are on that, but I don't know if I've ever, gone through something like that. I need either a game 5 or a game 7 decider. So I do hope that Arizona pushes the envelope. It's just really hard for me to see how they get it through. A lot of pressure on Brandon Pfaadt because I think even though Zach Gallen struggled a bit yesterday, Merrill Kelly, I think those two can go toe-to-toe with the Wheeler and the Nola 1-2 punch. But when you add in Ranger Suarez, who, man, this guy has an ERA, I believe, under 1.2 in the World Series or in the playoff or in his playoff career. And we're talking about like at least 20 innings, so it's not a small sample size. He's been really good. Is Brandon Pfaadt, who has been okay, I think there's a lot of pressure on him to be that third guy. And this offense for Arizona, they got to get into the 5s or 6s a game because Philadelphia is going to put runs up. We'll see. Personally, if as a betting man, I think Philadelphia gets the job done in either 5 or 6. But I would love to see this go 7. And I wouldn't be terribly heartbroken to see Arizona make it. But it's going to be tough. On the American League side of things, as crazy as this sounds, I actually think this is still going 7. The Houston Astros they have a chance to become the first team ever to make the World Series with a losing home record. I believe they're 39-43, or I definitely know they're under 500. So I don't know if it was a massive surprise to me to see them lose to against Texas. Now, it's not ideal. They definitely want one of those at the very least. But I think this series is still going 7. And unfortunately, look, if I'm a betting man, I think Houston still has that shot. Now, the big question mark, game 3, Texas, last I heard, it's Max Scherzer, who we kind of wrote off to that his season was kind of over with the injury. He's fought back and apparently got Bruce Bochy on board. That's huge. Because if they could get Max Scherzer, that gives where Max Scherzer needs to be, that gives Texas a huge advantage. I'm not sold just yet. And if we're being completely honest, Max Scherzer isn't exactly Madison Bumgarner in the playoffs. So does that matter too much overall? But interesting. LCS, as I said, still early on in these series, but Texas looking really good, as is Philadelphia. Bryanna, final thoughts on that, or any final thoughts for this podcast as we wrap this up?
Bryce Harper. I mean, you saw what he did yesterday when he hit the home run?
Yep.
On his birthday?
Yep. I like it.
I mean, it was a nice birthday gift. Hell, my birthday gift was the Diamondbacks sweeping the Dodgers. That was my birthday gift.
Yes. That was a great birthday gift for you. and really a great gift for all of us Dodger haters. But yeah, attaboy Harper. That'll be a quote. That'll be a rallying cry for for the Phillies fans for quite some time, especially when Orlando Arcia gets rolling. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting as we get rolling. What you got, Bryanna?
Oh, Schwarber had to get out of a way of a pitch.
Oh, was it Oh, gotcha. Oh, careful. We might get in trouble for showing that. But no, did you see I think it was it Adolis Garcia who had to do like almost kind of like a weird cartwheel to get out of a pitch out of the way of a pitch.
And he grounded Schwarber grounded out, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Schwarber grounded out, really... by the way. Trey Turner got an error. That's how Corbin Carroll got on base, was an error by Turner.
Oh, okay. Oof. Trey Turner's had a lot of errors this postseason. That is the one thing I will say. He's been really good this postseason, at least at bat. But any final thoughts there, Bryanna?
Nope. Let's just see the Diamondbacks win.
Well, don't hold your breath on that one. Just kidding. But it's...
Oh, that looks like it hurt. Inside pitch. He swung at it, fouled it off. The bat kind of flew.
Oh, yeah. But my final thoughts. Look, we're getting to the point where you're going to be able to count the amount of baseball games remaining on one hand. So as always, in April, it seems like we have a buffet of baseball, and then October gets here and we're really excited. Well, the World Series was going to get here real soon, which is great. However, it means baseball is going to be done and dusted really, really soon. So just enjoy it. Hopefully we get some really exciting baseball going forward. And we get a game 7 in one of these series, or at least the World Series, or all of them. I think that's what we all want. So with that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Changeup, presented by the First Off the Bench podcast.
Phillies are already up. Phillies are up 1-0.
There we go. Home run. All right. But with that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Changeup, presented by the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It's time for y'all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to y'all very soon. Take care.